Everybody, my name is Randy Dale. I'm fortunate enough to be the chairman of the Pre-K district-wide master plan committee. This is a very incredible opportunity the town of Enfield has. Unfortunately, it's being driven due to the condition of our schools. We hired an architectural firm called Tecton Architects several months ago to help us with the pre-ref. They're going to walk you through tonight. Tonight's going to be one of 3 meetings. They're going to walk you through the process of where we are currently. We have 2 other meetings, December 17th and February 4th. We have another. They're going to go through the process and the steps that we've taken so far, talking everything from meeting with the user groups, end users, touring each of the schools. They're going to go through all that in detail, so I'm not going to go upon it, but I just wanted to let you know. After the presentation, the public is allowed to ask questions. There's a mic up here. If you come up, if you could please state your name and your address and your question. We will try to answer it tonight if we possibly can. Those of you at home that are watching, please submit your questions through the app or to myself as chairman, and I will get you guys to get the answers to those questions also. I would like to introduce the committee members. If you can each stand up individually and state your name and who you are and why you wanted to be part of this, if you can. Well, thank you, John.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us here. My name is Scott Ryder. I am currently a member of the Enfield Board of Education. I will not be a member of the Board of Education in the next few weeks, and what I will be doing is I will be helping to run the PAC. So once this committee has decided the best plan moving forward, of course, with all of your input, then I will help run a bipartisan PAC, which will help kind of market what the plan becomes to our registered voters here in Enfield, and hopefully we'll have their support, and that is my role here this evening.
Hello, Gina Sakala. I'm on the town council currently, and I am currently a liaison for this committee.
Hi, I'm Tina LeBlanc. I'm a board member. I'm also vice chair of this committee. I think this committee is very important. I was able to work with Randy on the high school consolidation, and it's time to go ahead and look at our middle school or our elementary schools now that our middle school and our high school are complete.
Hi, Lauren Andrews, director of Eagle Academy here in Enfield, also a parent of 3 kiddos in town, and looking forward to see what we can do for our schools moving forward.
Good evening. My name is Bob Crescetti. I'm on the town council, and I am very happy to be a member of this committee. I've been in education here in Enfield for the past 40 years and looking forward to working on this project. Thank you.
Hi, Jim Nasuda. I'm currently on the town council. I am not running, but I was before on the Enfield High Building Committee, so very happy to be part of this referendum committee. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Jeff Rousseau, Town Council, currently representing District 3. Very excited to be part of this committee. We have a great team here, led by a great architectural firm. Randy's doing a great job as a chairman. We've been meeting for several months. A lot of great work that's been done so far. I currently have 2 children in the school system, and looking forward to the progress we can make with the elementary schools.
Good evening, I'm Charlotte Riley, Board of Education Chairwoman. I have 2 kiddos in Enfield, and I was on the committee that helped the JFK referendum pass last time, and I am super excited to see where this one takes us because our K-5 schools are in need of some serious assistance.
Hello, I'm Janet Christian, currently serving on the Board of Education, and thankful that we get to be part of this process of helping to cast a vision for the future of our elementary schools.
Thank you very much. So, one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to help inform the public as much as we possibly can on everything that's going on. As a citizen, I always hated to find out there's a referendum and the decisions were already made that I have to, as a taxpayer, help pay for it. So what we've done, which we've done through all those other schools, renovations that we've done, but we've done it, we're doing this one also. We're trying to get the public involved. We're trying to get the end users. This decision is going to affect everybody in this town of Enfield. Not only if you have children, if you're a taxpayer, it's going to affect you. It's going to affect your cost of your property. This is going to be the most logistic changes in the town of Enfield's history for elementary schools. We also are being looked at by other towns to see if this is how this works, how the town's being able to renovate all these buildings. Some of them are going to be torn down, some of them are going to be replaced. We're going to have new buildings. Those that are going to stay are going to be called what's called renovate as new. Again, the architect's going to go over all that, and he's going to discuss the reimbursement rate, and we can further discuss that further. But I just wanted to allow the public to be part of the decision making and be part of the direction that the committee, and based on the feedback, that this project will be going. We're going to be given a couple of options, and they're going to again explain how many options we started with, and now we've narrowed it down and for specific reasons. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the principal of Tecton Architects, Jeff.
All right, thank you, Randy. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Wazinski. I'm a principal at Tecton Architects. With me tonight is Chris Sickley from CCM Management, Justin Hopkins, the project manager, and Antonia Ciavarella, architectural designer, and works closely with us on the community engagement. So the agenda for tonight, we're going to start with a brief overview, review of the existing conditions, what the schools look like today. So I'll cover that area. Then Antonia, yeah, was it something I said? I thought they were. Okay, all right, as long as they're staying in the room. The second topic that we're going to go over is the shared feedback we received to date. So we've been meeting for several months now, also having some more focused meetings related to the program. Specifically for Eagle Academy and the elementary schools, and as well as Stowe. Antonia will go over that information, and then Justin will hit upon the initial planning options, kind of the wide lens that we want to start with and look at, and basically leave no stone unturned, making sure that we look at all the options, the cost, scope, schedule, those kinds of things, the logistical challenges related to each. So after that, this brief presentation, ideally we get into an interactive discussion. So we have a Mentimeter, which is kind of a digital, you can use your phone to interact and offer input that will help us shape the options as we move forward. And what I should have mentioned at the onset, just from a housekeeping perspective, there's, for those that like the note cards and do not want to speak publicly tonight and want to offer some opinions or comments, there's a box at the front of the room, and then there's a box on the table on the way out. Please feel free to offer any comments, questions. We'll make sure to collect all of those and publish those on the website. So with any luck, we'll be out of here in about an hour, and was intentional to schedule this between 6 and 7 for those that have individuals or younger children in the household. They'll know exactly what I mean. So why are we doing this? We're doing this first to address the aging facilities. We also want to look at the capacity district-wide, right? There's a lot happening in your community with various different types of housing redevelopment. So there's a demographer that's really a consultant to our team, not here tonight, but they're focused on looking at what's happening from a demographic and enrollment projection perspective to understand what the student population is going to look like over the next 5 to 10, 15 years out. We'll look, of course, at the educational needs. And lastly, cost, affordability, maximizing reimbursement from the state. Obviously, that's a key topic for anybody that pays taxes in the community. So we want to be sensitive to the scope, schedule, and the cost impact of this project. So what is a master plan, or why a master plan? Really, it's pretty simple. It's just explore the opportunities to make improvements across the district, holistic look at it. So this is a big picture, broad brush look master plan at all of the elementary grade level facilities, making sure that that educational experience is equitable across the community. And that's an important piece when we move through this, this master plan and our work. So who's involved? You saw all of the introductions to date, but just broad brush again, the committee is made up of a great cross-section of Board of Ed, Town Council, various different community members, principals, district leadership. So we're getting really good input. All of those meetings are public. All of those meetings and the presentations that we'll generate are going to be published and posted on the project website. So again, transparency from the start to make sure that you understand the process that we're going through. Community members, as I mentioned, teachers, staff, students, parents, and then community at large. So we welcome the input. Now is the time to offer that input so that it'll help shape the plan that we create. And then of course the project team, I mentioned Tecton Architects, MGMT, which is Chris, MP Planning. MP Planning is the demographer. So that work is still in progress because what happens every year in October, there's fresh enrollment. So we want to take the most current data from the school district, use that, mix it up with all of what's happening in the district from a redevelopment and zoning perspective, and then create the student enrollment projections. So that work is still kind of ahead of us a little bit, but we'll have a presentation specifically for that. Lastly, we have engineers and also additional consultants. So the faces that you see are the consultant team. What's important on this slide is this team is going to be with you and has been with you from the start of our work several months ago all the way through the completion of the project. So there'll be continuity there. So what's being considered? There's four main components to our work. I mentioned the demographics and enrollment to make sure that we're right-sizing these buildings, making sure that we're planning for the future. You're putting your best plan together, so you're future-proofing it, if you will. We're looking at the infrastructure assessment, and I'll give a broad overview of that tonight. We're looking at the educational program, right? So students, faculty and staff, they learn, they teach differently than 50 years ago. So we'll kind of highlight some of the challenges and opportunities that exist within the programming, and then of course, community engagement. So you put all these four components into a bucket, and you get the feedback, and you're creating these planning options. And believe me, we don't get it right the first time, so there's going to be a whole host of options that we're going to study, and that some of that work has already been worked on with the Pre-Referendum Committee. Ultimately, if we do our work well, the ideal option will gain consensus, but it will also create this master plan. And this master plan, you have to think of it in a slightly different mindset. This is generational. This is not for tomorrow. It's not going to impact, you're not going to see a building built, next year. We're talking about a 15, 20, multi-generational project that's going to change the landscape of benefits. We want to be careful. We want to hear the feedback from individuals in the community to help shape this. So this slide, and I'm not going to go through everything here, but on the left, starting at the left, it talks about the history of when the buildings were built, and all the way up through basically the near term. The one area that I wanted to highlight on the slide is when the district restructured a bit to the K-235, because that was a monumental change. There was a change to the attendance zones as well. So ever since 2011, the current grade level configuration for the elementary schools has existed. So just to give you a little bit of context, and certainly this will be posted. You can go back and look at more of the history of it. This is kind of our schedule. So the committee's been at it for several months, as I mentioned, but there's been some initial studies back in 2022, and then some work by the district in 2023. Our work, and I just highlighted it there in that kind of yellow area, is what we're currently in, right? We're going to conduct the assessment, we're going to validate the program, we're going to look at the options, and we're going to do all of this over the next several months, with the ideal schedule being spring, June timeframe in that area. Look at cementing the plan, the referendum for support. There's a key date for the state reimbursement. Keep this in your mind, write it down. June 30th. There has to be, for any of the projects that we create and conceive out of this master plan, there's a deadline, June 30th every year, for a grant submission. And that's an important piece if you want reimbursement back from the state. So long term, again, as I mentioned, if you do implement these projects and proceed forward after the master plan is developed, each of these projects takes about 4 to 5 years from the start to finish, right? From design, approvals, all the way through construction completion. So again, not going to happen tomorrow, but we need to be strategic in our thought process here. This slide in the middle represents on the top the current attendance zones for the elementary schools, and obviously their sister schools or brother schools, Bernard and Crandall, Memorial, Whitney, and Enfield Street in Parkman. So top, middle, and then at the bottom. In total, we looked at 8 buildings, so the elementary schools in addition to Stowe, and making sure that we also address Eagle Academy, which is basically the alternative learning program, a very focused, specialized program for grade levels, intended to be for grade levels as well. So I'm going to walk you through some of the existing conditions, and again, we're going to have a full report depicting kind of the details of what's happening in each of your buildings as far as the age condition, but I'm going to hit the highlights. This slide has an awful lot of information on it, but it's good to go back to the reference, and I included in every one of our committee presentations, and they're probably sick of seeing it, but what's important, starting on the left side, is the name of the school, moving from left to right, the original construction, what kind of renovations were completed and when they were completed, then in particular roof replacements, because there was a roof referendum, so to speak, a few years back, so we want to keep an eye on that from a reimbursement perspective. Next column is the grade level configuration, and then the next one over is the current enrollment. And lastly, your gross square footage, or the size of the building. So this will be important. It's a good document and slide to look at when we start looking at the planning options to give you a sense of scale, right? So if we're talking about buildings, potential buildings or additions or whatever it may be at 50, 60, 70, 80,000 square feet, you can say it's kind of like the size of apartment, or it's kind of like double apartment. So it'll give you a good sense of scale. What's interesting is that if you average this out, these buildings are about 58 years old. To some, me kind of getting included, that's kind of young now. But in a building age, it's actually quite old, right? So the expected useful life of systems, roofs, windows, mechanical systems is in that range of 25 to 30 years. The infrastructure, obviously, we have buildings that are a couple hundred years old, including my house, but they need the structure's fine. But they need a lot of work, and that's what I'm going to go over in a second here. And then I mentioned earlier the programs, the unique programs at Stowe and Eagle Academy, and then the sister school or brother school kind of mentality with the K235. Why does all that information matter? Well, I'll tell you why, because for those in the room that are concerned about costs, Enfield's reimbursement, base reimbursement right now, for new buildings is 68.33, or for renovation as new. It's a term when you go in. This is one of them. This building is a renovate as new, so you can add it to the building and you can completely renovate it. Every dollar you spend, you'll get 70 cents back from the state if you follow the regulations. You submit on June 30th, you follow all of their requirements. So that's a pretty significant piece. And then the other couple of interesting benefits here are last year, through the legislative session in the spring, they've added 2 additional bonus reimbursement, if you will. One for early child care, kind of the pre-K or birth to 5-year-old, so educational programs. You get an additional 15% on the entire building, right? So additional 15% on the entire building. So take basically 70 plus 15, 85%. The other one is in specialized education areas. So what they're trying to do is take programs that you send students out of district, they're trying to pull those back to the district because we know that's likely best for the student and likely best for the community from an operational and cost perspective. They're adding 15% for that too, but that's just focused on the specialized ed area itself within the building. So one is the entire building for early childhood, one is just the spaces themselves for special ed. So those are key contributors when you start looking at the planning options. As we move into the physical condition summary, the buildings, don't misunderstand me, but the buildings have been well maintained. They've gotten a lot of good use. They're using pretty much every square inch of the building. But as I mentioned, the term end of useful life will come in quite a bit. You can only expect building components to last for so long, especially when they're used in a public setting, right? They get a heavy use. So some of the common findings we're seeing: poor comfort, temperature control, indoor air quality is huge. So some of the building systems back in the 50 years ago didn't have the code requirements that you have today as far as fresh air exchange, like in this building, right? Was directly related to the health of the individuals in the building. Accessibility, code, life safety, things like that, ramps, push-pull clearances, making sure that the building is universally accessible for those that have disabilities. That's an important piece in public buildings. Many of the buildings in the elementary grade level do not comply with the current codes. There's building systems at or end of the useful life, interior finishes, millwork, things as you'll see as we move through some of the photos will depict. So I mentioned common findings, and these are kind of more or less common findings across all of the elementary schools as well, but we want to kind of highlight some of the key features, and there's kind of this dashboard, if you will. So at Barnard, some of the traffic and building systems kind of came to the highlight. So we're just highlighting some of the keys as we walk through. We observed what we also heard through the staff of the building. Hazardville Memorial, pretty obvious one, building envelope. As we move through, and many of the buildings relate to building envelope, which means roofs, windows, doors, brick walls, those kinds of things. Enfield Street, no secure vestibules, security, safety, that whole strategy is an important piece, obviously, in today's learning environments. Taking a look at that and how it compares, how your buildings compare to what really should be as far as the standards. Looking at, for Stowe, we know you have a lot of both school-based curriculum and program, but also town-based. So there's a lot of community-based functions in that building, but you're maxed out. You're using the gymnasium. You're setting it up for a portion of the day as 4 classrooms, then taking it down and then setting it back up. So the operational inefficiencies of capacity become a real concern. Prudence Crandall, for those that walk the site, there's the site, things like storm drainage and kind of gaps in the building envelope lead to some unwanted pests at times, to put it pleasantly. Eli Whitney, things like limited outdoor area, that came into existence because the original site was rather large, but once they added the library, it started to divide up the site. So it does impact the educational kind of curriculum and the use of outdoor space. Parkman, and we see this commonly, specialized education simply didn't exist, that the notion of specialized education didn't exist 50 years ago. So they're making best use of former closets or electrical rooms or hallway nodes, anywhere they can to get the small intervention, the sensory rooms, all of those kinds of spaces that help students focus. That's a common theme throughout, but particularly at Parkman. And lastly, Eagle Academy, newer building, but very small. It's about 12,000 square feet. So the capacity, and unfortunately there's a true need there, and it's not uncommon to this district. It's that kind of program is grown over the last decade, and the spatial needs for that particular program, that therapeutic program are extremely important, but also consume a lot of space. So again, capacity there. I'm going to walk you a bit quicker through these, but just some examples of outdated building systems, unit ventilators that might not be pulling in the proper amount of outdoor air, interior finishes, hazard memorial, as I mentioned, the building envelope has very much past its useful life, where in some instances you can stick your hand almost through the window. Enfield Street, talked about the security kind of arrangement. This is more of a programmatic and planimetric challenge as it relates to safety and security. Prudence Crandall talked about the single pane windows, the makeshift kind of air conditioning, temperature control, and this leads to other concerns related to pest management. Eli Whitney, and again, these are just items that rose at each of these sites, but they're pretty common throughout all of the sites that we found. Insufficient outdoor space, play areas, and outdoor learning, insufficient separation. Parkman, here's a good example of what I mean by accessibility, right? So see that step at that door? That's not allowed in today's building code. So all of these, albeit it's a simple step to some, it's a monumental challenge to others. And the code means that you have to comply with that. So these add up as you start looking at these buildings. Stowe, I mentioned setting up and taking down the gym. That's a visual example of that. And then Eagle Academy, just looking at, it was originally designed for a different use. So they've done a great job at using every square inch of that building, but simply just need more capacity there. And then if those photos weren't enough, we have a couple more slides just showing you the existing conditions, just to illustrate that this is not because of lack of maintenance. This is really because of age and condition over time, right? So 50, 58, 60 years, they add up. And some of these things, like the millwork and the accessibility requirements, we just didn't have the code requirements that we do today. Major pieces of equipment, obsolete PA, IT, AV infrastructure, those kinds of things. And lastly, for me, and then I'll turn it over to Antonia, we've had several different meetings related to program. This slide kind of summarizes some of the basics, but there's definitely an increase in the high needs enrollment or the need for special education. And that shows up in spaces like interventionists, counseling, resource rooms, any kind of coaching rooms, sensory, OT, PT. So there's several different successful programs in the district today at DLP, SOAR, and ALP. All of them are very successful programs, but they need the space to do the work. So that's part of the challenge with how do we resolve that in this overall master plan. Talked a little bit about the growing pre-K population inequity across the district and educational experience, and then some of the other ones related to safety and outdoor learning environments. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Antonia to cover the next section. Thank you.
All right. So as we mentioned on the outset, we've already had some really great conversations with various representatives. So not only the committee that you saw that's so diverse, but we also talked to a lot of folks in your district, whether that's district admins, school principals. We've talked with transportation, and there are more conversations to come. Some of those early conversations with teachers were very informative in terms of early goal setting. So we really, from these conversations that the district led early on in the process, kudos to them, has really helped establish some of the framework that we've used for our early discussions. So those were 8 sessions, 109 staff, and some of the things that rose to the top were conversations around increasing student engagement. How can this plan really help create that continuum of support for students and families to really further the mentorship model that exists in Enfield schools? And lastly, and importantly, to increase the parent involvement, because we know that's so critical to long-term student engagement and just the community engagement that's so special here in Enfield. We're going to continue those conversations with teachers. So this is a tentative date that we're sharing, but the think tank is a real opportunity for Teachers, board members, parents, students will work with the district and the committee to establish this group of liaisons that will help us further brainstorm and set those guiding principles for the project. And excitingly, for the students that I see here in the room, or any parents that have students, there are activity books on your way out. Feel free to grab one of those, because we would really love the students to share their ideas with us. And inside these activity books, you can answer questions, you can draw what you want your school to be like. So please take one, please share your ideas with us. Really is a great way to get everyone involved. And these have been distributed to all of our elementary schools to really help give as many students that want the chance the opportunity to share with us. And as you can see, it's adorable. So we really appreciate the students that participate and the creative ideas that come from this. We also would like feedback from the community at large. So we have a less fun but still very helpful survey for the adults in the community and any, of course, students that want to also take our survey. We're going to be taking this survey here tonight. This is going to be the Mentimeter that we will walk through together. So for folks scanning the code now, you'll likely see an arrow that says you're all set, you're waiting for the presenter. So that's good, you're ahead of the game. That's going to be our interactive discussion. So after tonight, what's going to happen is this same survey is going to go into survey mode, and folks that weren't able to be here tonight can take the same survey at their own pace. Our next community event is in December, so please save the date. December 17th. It's a virtual meeting on Zoom. So we've got the QR code there for you to join the meeting, or the ID and passcode. So December 17th is when we'll talk more. We'll incorporate your feedback from tonight. We'll incorporate feedback from the survey. And then we'll reconvene in mid-December to share what your feedback has manifested in terms of initial options. And we mentioned the website, we mentioned the email, so this is where you can go to find presentations, additional information, or if you think of something that you didn't get to ask tonight, that's the project email, so feel free to share your thoughts that way as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it to Justin.
Thank you, Antonio. So where do we go from here? As part of our work with the Pre-Referendum Committee, we've asked some questions, some basic questions to establish the framework for our options development. What are we trying to resolve? Reduce the number of school transitions was certainly a significant point. Equitable educational experience across the district, or continuity between schools and investment. As Jeff demonstrated, there's a need to resolve the condition of the existing buildings and sites. Population growth and capacity. What is our forecasted enrollment? And that's the work that the demographer is currently undertaking. Question, renovate in place or build new? Impact for the entire community. In other words, is there a community component to any type of project that we're looking at? Comprehensively address the therapeutic program. Strategy to bring some of our outplaced students back into the district. An integrated plan for safety within our school building infrastructure, and incorporation of outdoor learning environments. So the question is, what if? What if Enfield's elementary schools were designed back for our neighborhood schools for grades pre-K to 5? What if there were 3 or 4 elementary schools instead of 6? And what if the plan was inherently flexible to accommodate future town needs and provide that flexibility within the town? So the benefits to a pre-K to 5, this has been discussed. If anybody's been tuning into the PRC meetings, certainly fewer transitions, more academic opportunities, less travel for pre-K programs if we're embedding them into our neighborhood elementary schools, and the ability for students to build those long-term relationships, a continuum of services, having our students be mentors, have more stability and confidence, and certainly build in that teacher collaboration and development within a pre-K to 5 arrangement. This question will always come up. It comes up in every community when we're embarking on this significant of an endeavor. Would we have to redistrict? The short answer is yes. The long answer is it is a very long road. It's part of our options development, and it's part of the work of the demographer to make sure that we're minimizing the disruption of families in whatever plan is put forward. So, as part of our work, we're looking at, can we build on our existing sites? Can we put additions in an addition and renovation project? Can we build new facilities? Is there space within each site? And this is just a quick map. We have, perhaps in an interactive portion of tonight, we have some boards down here with some puzzle pieces that you can see how these types of sizes of elementary schools that we're talking about fit on each site. It's an exercise that we've done with the PRC, and certainly we'll continue to explore this through our options development. We're analyzing town-owned sites that are available, and that is also part of the investigation of potential options. So, step one is some of the work that you've already heard about this evening, the infrastructure assessment or the overall condition of our school building infrastructure, the educational programming. Those two pieces have, by and large, we've established the baseline, and we have that information that is preparing us for this option development. As Jeff had mentioned, the demographic study and the projected enrollment will be forthcoming very shortly, and we'll be using those numbers as they are projected to go into our student enrollment projections and capacities of buildings at each site. The work ahead. Leave no stone unturned in the amount of options that we look at. So at this phase in the study, we open the lens. We have a very wide lens look at options, and that goes from simply capital improvements or fixing what you have, through targeted renovations, through significant renovations, to full building replacement. So that's been part of the discussion with the pre-referendum committee. And it is part of the option development that we are looking at. The next step will be to review the options, focusing on future-proofing the district, in other words, positioning this plan so that it can allow for the generational investment that the town is embarking on. We want to make sure that we're minimizing the disruption to the district and the students and the families. Always, 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 that's what we look at. Safety and security are baselines for all of our work, and affordability. So making sure that we're developing responsible cost estimates that are escalated out to when they're going to be built. So all that information is part of the process and is part of the transparency that the pre-referendum committee is working on. So a couple things. What is the phased renovation? This is a school that we recently completed in Simsbury, Connecticut, Latimer Lane Elementary School. It is a pre-K to 5. This is a renovate as new. So you're looking at an aerial of the completed work. The drawing, the darker shade are the additions that were both to the south and the north of the existing building. Anytime you're looking at a renovate as new with additions, the concept is you build your additions first, so you kind of build in what's called swing space for your renovation work. So You basically build the building larger so that you can start swinging the students through the new construction areas, so that then you can break off pieces of the building to target more substantial renovations. So renovate as new is basically tear everything down to the studs, and basic gut renovation and replacement of building systems and interior finishes. So the strategy of the additions allows you to minimize the length of construction that is occurring. So typically those are in the 18 to 24 to 30 month range. So we look to capitalize on our summer work and minimize the amount of times that we're swinging students from their existing classrooms into the new portions. Another one that we are working on is in Cheshire, Connecticut. This is the Norton School, and I believe this animates. This is a drone flyover. So you'll see the new building is being constructed. In this case, it's to the north of the site. The existing school, Norton School, is in operation to the south of the site. So we are working with the construction manager to partition, to have a separate construction entry, construction fencing that allows us to separate the school, the playscapes from the existing building. This will be done by summer of 2026. So as soon as the students leave for summer break in June 2026, the existing building starts being torn down. We start building the parking areas. And when students show up for the beginning of their academic year 2026-27, they will be in their new school. So far this has been going great. The key component of this is constant coordination and collaboration with the school principal, with the faculty, to make sure that, when major deliveries are occurring on site, that they are, I'll go on to the next slide, that they are communicated and everybody within the district and the school is aware of what's going on and prepared. So a couple items about the educational benefit, why this matters. Study after study has shown and validated that when you do simple things like improving indoor air quality, access to natural light, improved acoustic performance within the spaces, you're impacting student health. And you're impacting the social and emotional well-being, the physical, creative, and cognitive health of our students. And that impacts student thinking, and that impacts student performance. And there are studies that back this up and validate these assumptions. So you can see why this is an important endeavor for the town. We also know that there's an educational benefit to a small learning community. Anytime you're going from, say, a lower elementary, upper elementary grade configuration, you want to make sure that you maintain some continuity within your small learning communities. So this is what we would consider a pod or an SLC, a small learning community, that has typical classrooms with our local resource support, intervention support, utility infrastructure, and flexible space within your SLCs. So this is the type of work that as we get into the plan development, we'll make sure that we're adhering to. We know that there's a community benefit to putting our public curriculum spaces, our gymnasium, our cafeteria, our media centers, front and center, or in the front of the building, so that we can partition after hours access, weekend access, to benefit the community at large. And whether that's rec in our gymnasiums, or visiting lecturers, visiting authors, PTO meetings, and our cafeterias and our media centers. So that is also at the forefront of our planning. As Jeff mentioned, the reimbursement is critical, and there has been a narrowing of the gap between new construction reimbursement and general construction reimbursement. So certainly the delta between these two options has decreased. Formerly it was about 10 percentage points apart. So it is now becoming more economical from a reimbursement perspective to build new. with respect to the dollars that you're getting for every construction dollar that you're spending. The key point of this is clear communication with the Office of Grants Administration, so they understand the comprehensive approach to the plan. They understand all of the checklist items, the maximum allowable areas, the thought process behind new construction versus renovated as new, and what incentives the districts are targeting. As Jeff had mentioned, we'll just go over this briefly. Early childhood care and education. When you bring a pre-kindergarten or birth to pre-kindergarten program into your elementary schools, you increase your reimbursement by 15%. When you also add comprehensive specialized educational spaces, those spaces also achieve an additional 15% reimbursement. So with that, I think we have a bit of an interactive session that Antonia is going to take us through.
Thanks, Justin. So we know we present a lot of material tonight. The intent of tonight is to present some of the baseline information so everybody's coming from the same starting point. And then you'll see a list of questions up here just to really start the conversation. So before we jump into kind of the interactive questionnaire through Mentimeter, I'd like to see if there's any questions that we might be able to answer before we jump into there. So if there's any questions on the content that we had or anything in general, why don't we talk about those first and then we can go into the Mentimeter. So great. I think what we're asking individuals to do is if you could come up to the mic and name, address, and then your question or comment. Thank you.
Hi, Maureen Griffin, Abbey Road. When you're speaking demographic numbers and reimbursement and allowable space and all that stuff, are we talking projected numbers and how does that play into reimbursement? Where does the number get locked in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the state grant application is going to be looking at the highest enrollment in an 8-year window. So the reason why they do that is because they don't want to see you back to the same project for many, many years. So the demographer is going to typically creates a low, medium, and high enrollment projection based on a lot of different metrics in the community, and that's out for 10 years. So the total student population, you take the highest enrollment for those grade levels, and then there's what's called an allowable area by the state. So for elementary schools, it's about 120 square foot per student. So you take your highest enrollment times that square footage, and that's how big the building can be built. And the state will reimburse you that baseline 70 plus 15%, whatever it may be. They'll reimburse you based on that size building for that number of students. And all of that's part of the grant application.
So when you say 8 years, is 8 actual years or 8 in the projected years?
It's 8 in the projected years, starting basically 2026, because that's when the grant likely will be submitted.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Oh, yeah. So one thing that the demographer is looking at is all of the different, and I know it's been out in the public in many different planning and zoning meetings as well, is they're going to look at all the development, the redevelopment projects. We've had preliminary discussions at our committee meetings just about the number of units for each of those developments. We know there's basically 3 or 4 major ones that are on the books right now, planned. The demographer knows that. Is going to speak to the economic development, going to speak to zoning, going to also speak to various different realtors to really get the pulse of what's happening in the community, because we want to make sure we get this right, because it's an important piece to get those student populations numbers correct. So That information, we received some preliminary information, but there's going to be a presentation. I think it's the November meeting, 17th. I'll look it up and get back. But the meeting, the PRC meeting in November, that consultant is going to present their findings. We'll make sure that that's all public, and then that'll be included certainly in the next community conversation. Any other? Okay, great.
Hi, Danielle Gerard, 18 Edgewood Drive. I was thinking about this while you were talking about redistricting. Just curious why that wouldn't happen while this phase is happening, as far as if we're building new schools. Why wouldn't that happen in that process right away? Looking at that map, personally, I'm like, that is insane how we're already doing it. So for me, why wouldn't we do that redistricting right away when we're building?
Great question. Space. I think space, logistics, sequencing, and timing all come into play. So the kind of realignment of the attendance zones, back then, there's some history to it. There's a lot of different, I'm not an expert in redistricting, but the demographer in the district is. There's various different reasons to make sure that you have a good cross-section of student population in each of the schools. The state looks at that and focuses on that. And I think that's kind of some of the reasons where you landed where you did for the kind of the current catchment areas. That's part of the work that's being looked at. And why wouldn't it happen now is because one, there's not enough space right now for that. And two, one piece that it was a small kind of word, but an important one is disruption in swing space. We want to make sure that what we try to do is look through, the eyes of the people that are going to experience this process, students, faculty, staff. And one thing that we're spending an awful lot of time on is phasing, logistics, and sequencing to make sure that we minimize the disruption, minimize the moves, make sure that we're not moving students or families into different buildings more than like once is the ideal move. So there's a lot more to it, and that'll unfold a little bit more once we get that full report. But it's a very valid and great question, and we'll make sure that we have a good definitive explanation as to the timing of it. Yeah.
Now, real quick, you talked about how good the new school is doing as far as how that process is going with coordination with administrators and stuff like that. How did the process go for the students and the administrators with the renovated space and the new spaces?
Oh, for the two cases?
Yeah, so the two different cases. How did that first one go, and what was the feedback? Because I'm guessing you probably had some type of conversation afterwards. How was the feedback from the teachers and even the students, because that's what matters.
It's a great question, and Justin was running point and heard the comments. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, I'd like to give a shout out to Principal Lazzetti at the Latimer Lane School. He became an honorary member of the construction team at times. So you'll hear us say this time and time again. The most successful renovation projects occur when there is collaboration, when there is a spirit of collaboration, and when there is a curriculum component with the principal, the administrators, the faculty, student of the month, maybe bring those students through the construction site on a Thursday afternoon, Friday afternoon, really make it part of the overall academic year so that the students are aware of what's going on. Contractors actually love to work on school construction projects because of how well they are run and how well the collaboration occurs between the students, the faculty, the administration, and the construction activities. So it absolutely cannot happen and cannot be successful if there is not that daily and weekly coordination.
Awesome, thank you.
And just to follow up on a couple of those, just as a rule of thumb, thanks Chris, not a rule of thumb, but as a best practice or based on our experience. New construction typically is about half the time frame as a phased occupied renovation. So twice as long for a phased occupied renovation. That's one. And the other piece that, if you weren't geeking out with the reimbursement rates in years past, as I do, the reimbursement rate between new construction and renovation used to be 10% difference. This August, the state released your current reimbursement rates that we showed you. That delta became much closer together. So that discussion was, I think, more robust when it was further apart. When they're closer together, to be honest with you, it may make sense, especially considering the current construction market, to look at, we're still going to look at renovation and new, but new definitely got much closer together as far as the value overall. And we'll show you the kind of the logic behind that too as we move forward with the options. So thank you for your question.
Angela Foss, 16 Crescent Beach Drive. I do appreciate your answer that you answered one of my questions because I wanted to know the difference in the time span. Because our buildings are in real serious need of renovation. And so the difference between renovate is new or brand new is basically less than 2%, you're saying. So, and then 15% added on of that would be reimbursed if it was one of those two qualifications.
Correct.
15% of what? How does this work? Let's say a building is $1 million. I know it's going to be a lot more than that, but let's say it's $1 million that we are going to put into it. 15% of that would be added on, or 15% of the 68.
Yep.
Yeah.
So those two. So for those that want to see the research, the Bill 7288 last year, the 15% for early child care and education, so birth to 5, so more or less pre-K, early childhood programs. If those are attached to an elementary school, it's an additional 15% on the entire school, the entire footprint. So it goes from 70 plus 15, it's 85% for a pre-K to 5 school.
So 85% of the entire bill.
Correct. The other piece, the specialized education, is just for the classrooms or the spaces in the building that are focused on the specialized ed. And that's an additional, that gets a little bit more complicated, but we'll still work that in to whatever options we show. But the main takeaway, I guess, for this group and for the community is it's baseline 70 plus 15 if you do a pre-K to whatever grade level elementary school.
And if half the building is special ed, how would that mathematically work out? Like, would it be another 7.5%? Would it be free?
Yeah, maybe.
100%, 85% plus the 15% addition.
No, so that's a great question, and so I'll take the Eagle Therapeutic Program, for example. So if you looked at a building, whatever size it may be, for that program specifically, you would get your base reimbursement, and because all of that program within that building is specific to what's on your screen here, that would be an additional 15%. If half the building, it would only be applied to half the building.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So in that case, it would be 85% again as well.
Correct. If it's the entire building.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Yeah.
So one of the things I'd like to throw out there, just so the public is aware, we are one of the highest reimbursement towns in the state of Connecticut. The average is in the 20. I've talked with several, as of 2 weeks ago, used to deal with every town in the state of Connecticut as far as construction. Some of them are as low as 12 and 13%. The average is 28 to 32. We are one of the top in the entire state of Connecticut. One of the things I also want to make you aware of is that the 15% for pre-K, the state is allowing that because within the next 3 years, pre-K is going to be required. So once it's required, that 15% is going to be taken away from us. So logistically speaking of how we bond this project, we pretty much have to lock in the funds, and not the contract, but the funds when we go to pre-ref, knowing it's going to take 8 to 10 years to do it. But if we wait and do a referendum every 2 or 3 years, we're going to be losing some reimbursements, and we're going to be losing some incentives, such as this pre-K, 15%. The state is doing this to have towns start to get that mindset, that every school has to have pre-K, or even the town has to provide pre-K. But once it becomes a requirement, the 15% is taken away. They no longer need to do that because it's going to be a requirement. So just want to let you know, this reimbursement rate is one of the highest in the state of Connecticut. So very fortunate.
So why are we guys one of the highest?
I'm sorry, if you want to come to the mic, you're more welcome.
Megan Kelly, Trevor Drive. I have a couple questions. As far as the runway as new versus building new, are you prioritizing trying to use existing land whenever possible, or are you looking for open space? I mean, is there, if we can go up instead of clearing raw land, I feel like personally I would prefer that, adding a second story or whatever versus having to move up existing green space.
Yep. Sure, great question. The first place we would look is at the existing sites to see what the capacity is to build new. One of the, you can see it on the map on the stage here. Actually all of your existing elementaries are all one story. Most of the buildings we see for that grade level configuration typically are 2. So there's an ability to maybe reduce the footprint from a sustainability perspective or energy consumption perspective. That's much more efficient. But if we use the existing site with the existing school, and for the example that Justin gave in Cheshire, where the building north behind the existing, you're going to get reimbursement on all of it to take the building down as well and put the parking. So that's where we'll look first, because that would be the most cost-effective from a reimbursement perspective for the community. So that's, I guess, does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, and then the second part of our second question is, as far as sustainability and energy consumption goes, how does the reimbursement, like using green building materials and using energy efficient heating and cooling, heat pump or solar or whatever, what kind of plans do you have to make our buildings more sustainable?
Sure. Good question. So part of the grant application, you have to comply with the high performance building standards. So that's energy efficient buildings. So that's kind of a prerequisite to get the reimbursement. I will tell you that most of our cost modeling all of our cost modeling that we're providing to the community and to all the communities includes the costs associated with geothermal, PV, and enhancements to the building envelope for energy efficiency. Whether or not the community chooses to implement it, that's their choice. But what ultimately we're seeing in I would say, pretty much all of our projects that are either under construction or recently completed is highly efficient building envelopes, geothermal systems, and then PV ready or PPA, which is a power purchase agreement, which essentially gets you to a more or less net zero kind of energy consumption. So we're looking at it from a holistic perspective, easily maintainable, easy to operate, efficient, low energy bills or no energy bills, but long term we're looking at it too from the building systems operations perspective. So the short answer to your question is those components of sustainability are included in the cost modeling that we're presenting.
Hi, just a quick one. Lindsay Cersei, Northfield Road. Is any of the state reimbursement that we would be utilizing, does it rely on any federal funding?
Good question, no. So we have, some of our projects have chased the Inflation Reduction Act and related to additional reimbursement for things like PV and geothermal, but the state reimbursement program is not reliant on the federal government.
Awesome. So the only timestamp essentially that we need to be aware of in terms of timeliness, right, is the one that you had mentioned in terms of when that 15% may be removed. So that's why we've got to make a phased plan. Is that accurate? So there's nothing in terms of the current administration is mainly what I'm getting at, federally, that we need to keep in mind as we're moving forward in terms of us losing any type of funding moving forward to make these phases happen.
Not to our knowledge and not at the current time.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just have 2 questions. Do you have a ballpark number for the difference between new for dollars per square foot and renovate to new dollars per square foot? And the second question is the sustainability of the new building materials for schools. These schools have lasted 60 years. Yeah, they need a facelift and they need a lot of work, but sometimes the newer, I guess, lighter construction doesn't hold up as well as we would like to think. Thanks.
Great questions. So I'll try to answer the first one, sustainable materials or durable materials. Most of our work, and I would say the work in the state, is focused on durability, masonry, brick, stick to kind of conventional materials that we know last. So I think if you stick with that mindset, you'll get buildings that will last much longer. The reality of today's buildings are most are steel superstructure with metal stud infill and then masonry surrounds. But making sure you place the durable materials in the areas that get the most use is the strategy that we would recommend, and make sure that that's included in the budgeting. From a ballpark, new versus renovate is new. So some of our prior materials that we've issued to the committee show some ranges of cost per square foot. Just anecdotally though, the delta between new and renovate is new has come much closer together. And some of it is because of the complications related to phasing and logistics. So you're paying for things like temporary walls, putting things up and down. You're also paying for a longer construction period. But also in the current climate, if bidders have a choice between new and renovate, complex renovation is new, but they likely look at the new. So those numbers, and this has been kind of confirmed through our CMRs, is that those numbers are getting really close together. There's still a little bit of a delta, but it kind of is site specific. So our work, our charge, is to make sure that we inform the public on what a new construction would take and what renovation of a similar sized building would take. And then what we do is we look at it from an inherent value. So we'll give you a value perspective, meaning if you're paying for 3 years of a trailer out on a site that's not gonna stay in the building that houses all your contractors for a renovation, and you're paying a year and a half for a new build, well, that's value lost, right? So we just wanna make sure that we're being fair and equal, comparing both. So that's kind of work yet to come to present. That likely is gonna be at our next community conversation, so that's an advertisement to come back.
I'm just going to add to Jeff's comment here. In the 2 examples that we showed you, a renovate is new. The one in Simsbury, that's an 80,000 square foot building. It was a 30-month construction duration. The Cheshire Norton School, 100,000 square foot, new construction. It's a 20-month construction window. So that additional 10 months is part of the narrowing of the gap between renovate is new and new construction. From a cost perspective, goes into things like general conditions. A large construction project, you're paying for maybe $100,000 in general conditions and staffing per month on these school projects. So a 10-month delta there is $1 million that you're paying for the construction, but you're not paying for going into the schools, into the curriculum space. So that's part of the rationale, we think, in these narrowing of the reimbursement rates between renovate as new and new construction.
Any other questions? Who's ready for some fun with Mentimeter? Come on. All right. I know we're running a little long, so if you would be so kind as to humor me. We have a quick kind of hit 10-question survey, and help me out here. Hit present.
Yes, please.
Yep.
I'll go over here. So, I'm sorry, John. You're so on top of it. Thank you. For folks joining on the live stream, you can either go to www.menti.com and enter the code, or if you can scan the QR code from your screen, go ahead and do so, and you should see a green arrow that says you're all set, you're waiting on us. And as we go through this, yep, perfect. As we go through this, questions may move along, but if you linger on a question because you're still answering it, you'll stay on that page and then you can jump to the new question. But we'll try to linger and let everyone answer. And people who've discovered the like button, amazing. All right, so is everyone connected and scanned? Does anyone need a paper copy? We brought a couple paper copies, if anyone would like. Paper copy? You got it. You're welcome. So this is again the same survey that you'll see at home later on. So if we are ready to go.
Good.
Yeah, let's jump in. All right, so the first question, easy. Who are you? Are you a parent, a teacher? You can select multiple answers. So go ahead and select whatever applies to you. And isn't this fun? So we're seeing some people like, we're seeing some answers. We've got 28 residents, 15 parents, 16 teachers or staff members. Are there some students in the house?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good job. Oh, can I be you? I'll put you in my, okay, student. There we go. Awesome. Amazing. All right, so we're going to jump to the next question. Why are you here? Another easy and fun one. Are you here to learn more, to ask questions? You can check all of the above. Why are you here?
Why are you here? Because mom's distracting.
Yeah, we should put that option next time.
You said learn more. He did say learn more.
Learn more, I love it. Okay, great. And I see, please wait for the presenter to change slides, so that's totally normal. We'll just linger here for a minute. We'll let folks finish submitting their responses. Lots of learn more. 38 learn more. 8 ask questions, 12 share feedback. Love it. Yes. Do you see a need? Do you see a need to address, yeah, we go with the questions. Do you see a need to address the elementary schools, grades pre-K to 5, and the Eagle Academy? Lots of yeses. Do we see a need? Not to put words in your mouth. Yes. Okay. Awesome. 37 people say yes, which is great. Amazing. I think that's a strong consensus. We'll move on. What do you see as the biggest need? So this is a chance to enter a word cloud. You can drop in a single word or a short phrase, and what's going to happen is you'll start to see some populate. You have five choices here, so if you see one that you like starting to populate on the screen, and you write that same word, it's going to get bigger and amplified in our word cloud. So let us know if, do you see some words that you like? Or I can leave you in peace if you want to enjoy the survey. So space, a lot of people saying space is our biggest need. Content continuity of services, sustainability, safety come in the forefront. Yeah, school condition, accessibility, modernize, property value, structure. School conditions, space, safety, structure. Yes. Learning space is coming up. Amazing, amazing. Awesome. All right, folks feeling good on the word cloud? Am I blocking you? I'm sorry. All right. Yeah, should we move to the next? So, do you see a benefit to merging the sister schools? So, do you see an opportunity when we think about Barnard and Crandall, Memorial and Whitney, Enfield Street and Parkman coming together? Do you see a benefit to that? Some say don't know, need more information. A lot of people say yes. What do you think? You got it. You got it. Amazing, amazing. All right, I think we're good. Should pre-kindergarten be located in each elementary school? What do we think? Should pre-kindergarten be located in each elementary school? Some say need more information. Some say yes. Some say no. All right. All right. I think we're feeling good on this question. All set. Amazing. So this one is a sliding scale. So from 1 to 3, 1 being not important, 2 being somewhat important, and 3 being more important. How important is each of these below to the preferred option? Conditions, capacity, cost, and curriculum. How important are they? And this is my favorite Mentimeter question because that sliding scale jumps all around when people respond. And it also shows you in the background the average of all of our responses. So we see that capacity kind of has a lot of, more even 2s and 3s, whereas condition really has a lot of 3s. It's very important, clearly very important. Awesome. All right. Definitely some leaders there, for sure. So type of construction. Let's rank our preferences. So for this question, the top choice that you choose to be your top choice will be most important. So rank your preference on type of construction. New, renovate is new, no preference, or a fixed repair, targeted upgrades. And you can click on them and add them to the list, and then you can hold and drag them or press your arrows and get them to a different order. So we see everyone's on the board here. New construction, renovate is new, no preference, and fixed repair, targeted upgrades. Everyone's on the board.
I think you just have to drag the first one and then you click on the next one. 2, 3, 4.
We need to redo that.
You can hit reset at the bottom of it.
If you want to redo your question, when you go home, just don't use your same, you'll remember your same device, so use your iPad, something else, different device. All right, yes. In the context of the master plan, what is most important to you? So this is another word cloud. Right, or, let's see, actually, maybe it's a comment. What is most important to you? And this could be the same word that you put in last time. For example, if educational programming was your last one, that also applies here for sure. Sustainability, future needs. Amazing. So we have accessibility, modern, Curriculum, yeah, absolutely. Happy students, that's amazing, love it. Students and staff, yeah, lots of common things here for sure. Long-term plan, appropriate space. Great. Great. Awesome. Safety came to the front again. That's great, yeah. All right, yeah, I think we're all set. Next slide.
I think this concludes it.
Oh, and that's the end. All right. Well, thank you so much for your feedback. So what's going to happen next is this exact same Mentimeter survey is going to be open. We're going to change it to survey mode, and then tomorrow you'll be able to take it from home. We have some flyers in the back, so if you want to take a flyer for you or take a flyer for your neighbor so that they can take the survey, please do. And we'll share the results of the Mentimeter at our next community conversation.
Great. Thanks, Antonia. And just to wrap, one more public service announcement. QR code, website, email. Any questions that come up, again, we have the comment boxes if you'd like to place some comments in there. So as far as next steps and what to expect, we're going to collect the questions that we had tonight, which were all great questions. Make sure we get those answered and posted. But as far as next steps, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to get the demographic report. We're going to continue to work with the committee. The survey, as Antonia mentioned, is open. We've already had some dialogue about the initial options, but we're going to start focusing in on the scope, cost, schedule, and benefits and challenges of each so that we can answer the questions some of the questions that we had here tonight as far as why we can't do this or when does this happen. And then our next community conversation is going to be all virtual. Hopefully we'll have more attendees. I saw about 40 or 46 or so there must be some folks watching at home. But our next community conversation is December 17th at 6 p.m. And it's virtual, and I believe that's already posted. There's flyers back there to lock it into your phone. I'll turn it back over to you, Randy, if you have any closing comments. But we wanted to thank you very much for the questions tonight, the interaction. I really appreciate the feedback, and this is actually, believe it or not, it's a fantastic turnout to talk about existing conditions. So looking forward to the next one where we talk about the options. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody that attended and that are viewing us at home. I just want to convey the magnitude of the importance of this. This referendum is not something that we decided, let's spend some money and renovate some of these schools. As you know, any of the people that go to any of these schools, every one of these schools are in dire strait. Unfortunately, they have not been maintained to the ability to continue their lives. One of the situations that we are up against is that if we do any renovations, maintenance renovations, new windows, which they all need, new mechanical systems, what they all need, ADA, abatement, you're looking at anywhere from $4 to $9 million per school. Any maintenance renovations or updates are non-reimbursable. So if we were to just go ahead and start replacing the exterior windows on these schools and the roofs and the ADA, the door and the air conditioning, we're going to be spending anywhere from $26 million as a minimum to up to $44 million as a minimum, not as a top, it could be even more, which would be 100% taxpayers' responsibility. The state does not reimburse anybody, any towns, to do any maintenance to any of their buildings. So, unfortunately, we're at the point where these schools will no longer can be maintained and continue their lives. Some of them, as you know, Crandall's, and you can't open the windows, the whole picture frame goes out. We have foundation issues in a lot of schools. Right now, we're playing whichever school has the most buckets, we replace that roof. There's no maintenance plan going on, there's no 5-year look ahead. They're all in dire strait. We are fortunate enough to be able to reap the benefits of the reimbursement. But this is a big decision. This is a town-wide decision. This is going to affect everybody. This is going to affect enrollment. It's going to affect the cost of your house. It's going to affect businesses that come into this town. It's not an easy decision, but one of the good things about it is that when and if it does pass, and we're looking at in June, we have to have everything in by May to the Secretary of State for our grant. If it does pass the referendum, we're looking at 8 to 10 years. We're not looking for a check the day after it passes for whatever the amount is and whatever direction we're going. I just want to put that out to the public. When it passes, if it passes, we're not looking for a check for whatever multi-million dollars. It's something that's going to be staggered after several years, but we have to lock in the cost to reap the most benefits as far as reimbursements and entitlements from the state. So tonight was the very first meeting to kind of let everybody know what's going on, why we need to do this. We're looking for some direction. We're looking at either 3 schools or 4 schools. The benefit of going either one of them is you have your pre-K in the multiple schools, so you're reaping the benefit for construction in those schools. Like Jeff was saying, years ago there was a 10 to 15% delta between renovate as new and new. Right now, really, you're looking at 2%. There's really not much of a difference. So it's going to be based on the enrollments, which everybody knows, enrollment's going up. We have so many developments going in this town. We're estimating at this point, without even the study being finalized, we're over 117 new kids. And depends on what district that is in. So that's a huge number. We have one chance to do this. We got to do it right. We're taking our time. We're not pushing any specific date to get this thing done. We have to do it right. We got one shot at this. But the problem with projected enrollment is that the state will only allow us, based on square feet of enrollment, 129 or 125 square feet per student. So anything over that square foot wise, the state won't reimburse us at that percentage. So if we want to design for the future, which we all want to do, we built every school in this high school in JFK. We started it, and then 5 years later, after it was designed and under construction, we were maximizing our occupancy already. So we can't design it with 10 extra classrooms just sitting there unless it's allocated for a program. So that's a fine line the architects have to play with in the number game with the state. We want to get the most reimbursement we can, but we also want to have a design for current and future program requirements. They're talking to the end users. We're not designing these buildings based on one teacher's opinion. We're designing these buildings based on the program requirements. The parents and teachers look for the future, how we're going, the districts and the programs that are going to be coming up. So we are doing our damnedest to get this right. We are looking for input from everybody. Please don't be shy and ask questions. We're all in it together, but we can all resolve this together. So let's all do this together. Thank you very much for everybody who's viewing it and everybody who attended it. Thank you very much.